psychedelics, lessons on self-care and integration. And I was also helping out MAPS with their integration list. So I was just having a lot of conversations about integration. And so but the psychedelic, this was like at the beginning before it started becoming like somewhat of a trend. And I was like, we just should create a course and get a lot of different perspectives on different experts' opinions on what integration means and how people are approaching integration. And so we put together a course that goes from like harm reduction, preparation, safety, navigating the psychedelic experience, and then a whole other part of it is about integrating your experience. How do you bring these experiences into your daily life, embodying it, and making some changes and learning how to move whatever came through you forward into your daily life. And so that's a pre-recorded course. Anybody can sign up for it anytime, take it on their own pace. And the 5-week part came in where I was like, I think it's nice to be able to connect with people. And so we started to incorporate these live meetups in conjunction with the course. So we've been offering online education with the pre-recorded, but then also 5 weeks of meetup time virtually on Zoom to have a classroom discussion about this. And we've been running like different models for this course. The first course that we ran like really focused on people that were having difficulty integrating and, maybe working through some sort of like integration project, right? If you had like a really big vision and really not knowing what to do with it, like trying to break it down and maybe create some sort of integration project, whether that's a poem, piece of art. And now it's kind of shifted into just educating people around the topic and, kind of more psycho-ed. And then we also have another program for clinicians and therapists, and that one is doing really well, and a really big focus is ours too, where, we a lot of clinicians and therapists and professionals are reaching out of like, how do I get into this space? Or like I have clients that are coming to me disclosing their psychedelic use or they want to try this stuff. So how do I navigate it? So, we've taken our core curriculum, added to it as well, and that's more clinically focused to have these discussions about if you are a professional, how do you navigate this space? How could you implement some integration techniques into your practice if you do have clients coming in talking about their experiences, how to support them? So that's a main focus of ours right now is in this education of providing these online supported courses to different populations and different topics.
I'm curious about the clinicians and the therapists. Are you seeing more of a concentration coming from places like California or here in Denver and Colorado, or is it across the board? Curiosity.
Yeah, there's a few people from Europe. I mean, right now, I think it also, like, the way that we run the course depends on the time. So the course is run at night around 7 p.m. Eastern time. And so, I've had people from the UK reach out wanting to involve in this course. We've had a lot of therapists and clinicians from California, and definitely the Denver and Boulder area. But, there's people that have chimed in from Canada and other different parts of the state, New York, I think Minnesota, Washington State. And then outside of our clinician course, I mean, we've had people from even different countries like Australia. I think somebody was in maybe New Zealand. So yeah, it's kind of all over the place. But there is a decent amount of people from the California and Colorado area that do join our course, but really all over the place.
We've touched on some different experiences from some different substances. One thing we haven't touched on yet, I'm just curious about what your thoughts and takes are, is ketamine-assisted therapy.
Yeah, this is a hot topic, and it's kind of a hot topic because Johnson & Johnson, I guess they're in the process, or maybe they've already released what's called S-ketamine, and that was a really huge deal. And so, I think prescribers can prescribe this this forms ketamine in therapy. So there's different models for ketamine therapy. There's some places that do just IV infusions. You go there and they just kind of hook you up to an IV machine and give you ketamine, and it's kind of like this biochemical approach that the ketamine is altering your brain and kind of fixing the depression or whatever's going on for you. Then there's ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, where there's practitioners using ketamine in conjunction with therapy. And so, this is a really interesting topic, and we actually end up talking about it a lot. We had a Navigating Psychedelics for Physicians course where, ironically, we just ended up talking about ketamine a whole bunch because it's interesting. Ketamine is a Schedule III substance. People have been prescribing it off-label. Usually, what ketamine is a dissociative anesthetic. They still use it in the ER at times, and it's really well known in veterinary medicine. And it has a pretty high safety profile where, like other anesthetics, lower heart rate. Ketamine doesn't. So it was actually used, I believe, in like Vietnam War on the field because it didn't lower heart rate. You could have an anesthetic that was pretty safe. But at these different doses, people can have transpersonal-like experiences. And so here's a medicine that is accessible now as a psychedelic therapy. And so, we get a lot of questions on, how do I get involved? And actually, ketamine is a place where some people can get started providing, a psychedelic therapy. And so, it's interesting. I had a session with a psychiatrist, and it was really interesting. It allowed me to kind of work through my thoughts differently and kind of process things. And, it was in a dose where I wasn't too dissociated, and I wasn't having this traditional, sometimes people talk about like the K-hole, but I was using it in a way where it was like talk therapy. I was on a couch with eye shades, listening to music, and I had a lot of memories and different themes come up, and I started remembering a lot of dreams that I had, and all these themes that were interconnected from all these dreams. And the therapist was there beside me, and I was just chatting with the person and just kind of working through whatever was coming up. And so it's a way to, I guess, access this non-ordinary state in therapy and to work through it a little bit differently. So, some people are using this model that's really similar to the MDMA therapy model, eye shades, music, in adjunct to therapy. And so, I think there's a lot of benefit there of working with non-ordinary states. And, I might just be a little biased because I have this background in transpersonal psychology, and my master's in counseling was focused on somatic psychology. So I'm more interested in working with non-ordinary states in the body and not always trying to be super analytical and talking about things. I think sometimes you can only get so far with talking. And what is it like to actually work with this inner healing intelligence that can get access through a non-ordinary state, whether that's breathwork, ketamine, or any other sorts of substance, or even just focusing on the body, really kind of tapping into this intuition and this inner wisdom that your body has. So, yeah, ketamine therapy, I think, is up and coming and really interesting. I know there's a lot of things happening out in the Denver area with ketamine. And I mean, just Colorado area in general, not just specifically Denver. And yeah, it's interesting. It definitely seems like an up and coming entry point to provide psychedelic therapy for therapists.
It's an interesting one. I haven't had any therapeutic sessions, but it's definitely got some different, can put you in some different states. But I think with all of this, like you were saying, it goes back to whether it's breath work or some of these different medicines, it's tapping into or getting reconnected to the human experience and to your body. And in this day and age, we are so disconnected from our bodies or being in tune with our body, be it because of screen time, social media, or poor nutritional practices and habits. There's so much of a disconnect that I think whatever it may be, whatever substance or breath work that's allowing you to tap back into the human experience and appreciate nature or your body itself. These are all good, amazing things that the more education that's out there, the more of this taboo that we can, kind of wipe off the board. And when my mom's reading Michael Pollan's book, by any means necessary, whatever we have to do to, she may not listen to us, but she knows who Michael Pollan is, and she's going to devour that book. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And directing people to your site is another way to educate these people. Do you have any other recommendations that people should look into other than, say, Michael Pollan's book? Any other, I know James Fadiman has a great book out there as well. Are there any resources that you recommend for people that are trying to, dip their toe in a little bit, or at the very least try to understand what their two hippie sons might be doing on a regular basis?
Michael Pollan seems like a good entry point. It's pretty like entry level basic for some folks. Our website has a bunch of information, podcasts. We're always interviewing people. Our online course is also a really great way to just get a really extensive overview of this topic and learning the harms, risks, dangers, benefits. If you're really interested in the science aspect and wanting to see what science is doing, maps.org, kind of like Google Maps, but it's just maps.org. That's one of the main research organizations that's doing research in psychedelics, specifically MDMA. If you want to see some of the science and just see how people are doing this, definitely check out MAPS and some of these other organizations, because I know that can be really helpful for people. If you're interested in just learning about I don't know. We always refer people to a site called Airey. It's just a really great drug archive or substance archive that just has a lot of different information, from trip reports to dosing information, and that's EROWID.org. There's a lot of great resources out there on the internet. Some are a little you gotta be a little discerning and take things as a grain of salt, but definitely check out Psychedelics Today, MAPS, and Airey, and a few others. There's something else I was going to say, but it slipped my mind. I know. You were talking about being disconnected from the body, and that was something I chatted about not too long ago. It was either at that event that I was just at or some other place. Maybe it was on another podcast. And, psychedelics have this weird taboo, or maybe not that weird. There's a reason why they're taboo. And there's a lot of stigma around there. And just, I guess, working with non-ordinary states in general is kind of quote-unquote weird or woo-woo or strange. And, I've just really encouraged people to explore this topic with an open mind and see what some of the research is saying. And also, this whole point about connecting with ourselves. A lot of exercise and diet trends, say we are connected to our body, right? A lot of people exercise, yoga, being on diet trends, thinking about their body. But it's also what's our connection with our body in a different way of actually tapping into this inner experience. And that's different. It's something that we're disconnected to. And I think that plays a role in some of the stigma in saying, oh, it's weird to go into our emotions or go into our feelings or have an experience like this. That's just weird. Why would I do that? Why would I want to engage in this work? And, when I really think about it, it's this is the core of what being human is. If you look at all sorts of cultures from around the world, they always had either rites or some sort of practice to tune into our bodies and tune into this I even come back to relationship, right? Tune into our relationship with our body, tune into the relationship with the world around us, to, the universe, whatever you want to call that, whether that's God or this or that, but it's really about cultivating a relationship with yourself. And I think that's what a lot of this work is about, is becoming a little bit more curious about who you are and what you're doing here. And I guess that could be weird for some people, but I mean, at the core of it, it's like, this is what being human is, right? It's like, we're here. What are we doing here?